So, hello everyone, I hope you're going well. Today, this is a special video for the people on the phone. And of course, if you want to know more about, the Carokann, if you're trying to make a complete repertoire based on the Carokann, you can just go in the description. You will have an access to my Instagram account. You can just send me a message. I can create your full opening repertoire for at least $15. So, in this opening, my opponent played e4, which is okay. I played the Carokann, and he played the Fantasy variation, which is a great line. I had some troubles, fighting against the sign, but it's actually not so great. I decided to take and go e5, which is the main line. Why is it the main line? Because it's actually the best line, which gives white and black, the best chances to win. Now I have free bishop g4, and here the best move is probably the practical issue, the practical line taking here, which the ancient sometimes like and sometimes doesn't like. It's a very tough position, to be honest. Basically, you're basically up a pawn, and this is just difficult to fight against. In practice, even though you might actually get the pawn back, it's not an easy position to handle. So my opponent decided to just play bishop c4, which is the main line. I played knight d7. If I play, for example, knight f6, white at the very least can just take on f7. I take back and knight e5, doing a fork and getting the piece. So getting the piece back and being up a pawn. So I decided to go knight d7. Now, if you take on f7, I take back. There is no knight g5 trying to discover because I have queen takes knight. So, and if you go knight e5, I can just take with the knight and I defend the bishop on g4. And if you castle, then it doesn't matter. I just move my king out of the way. So he had to go c3. This is a good idea, just trying to go over there. If you play castles first, I can play knight f6 with a great idea. If you take, I think if I take back, here I might be lost. No, there is no bishop f7 because I just take back, so it's actually okay. But you could take here first, I take back, and then you take on e5. So that is why I would have to actually start before knight f6 with the move bishop d6. Now, if you take, I can take back, and there is no troubles. Again, I should just be careful, about some lines in which, I take and my opponent tries to kill me. But now there is nothing, so it's okay. If I go there, he will take on f8. I can show you again. This knight takes, I take the queen, check, I go up. Now, if check, I have knight f6, so he takes here first. But then I take on e5, and if bishop g5, I have bishop f6, and I'm defending and attacking everything, and I will be winning very soon. So that is why it doesn't work. But he played c3, which is the main new line, and basically I play bishop g6, the same move. Queen b3, it feels like I'm losing a pawn, but this is a special line which I want you to play with the black pieces. It is actually the move recommended by international master, I think, Lamy. Yeah, which is the move queen e7. Now, if you take on b7, which is okay, I can go rook b8 because my rook was getting attacked. And if you take here, for example, then at the very least, I can take on t4. You take back. If you take with the pawn, there must be some queen e4 and you lose the game. So queen takes back. And now this is hanging. Everything's hanging everywhere. So I should just take, check, and for example, queen h4, just to start harassing the king. Or if I want to be extremely accurate, I can start with knight e5, attacking everything, threatening a fork, so bishop e2. And now I can go bishop c5, because once the queen moves away, I can go queen h4. I can go queen h4, and the king is getting cutted, and then rook d8 in the end. So it doesn't work out. So that is the reason why taking on a7 is bad. So white took on c6, and now I took on f3. But why though? Because if once I take, the king starts to be vulnerable, and might actually suffer some checks. So I played then knight f6, which is the only move. The idea is pretty simple. Let's say white castles, then I should also castle, and it's very difficult for white to bring the pieces into the action. If the bishop moves, we get the pawn, and if you go, for example, for knight d2, which looks logical, I can take on d4. You have to take back, otherwise I get my pawns back, and rook b6, harassing the queen moves away, and now a special move, bishop takes h2 check, which is a very strong move. The idea is pretty simple. I'm just, attacking the king, so if you do not take, then it's just lost. For the same move, knight h5, I'm just starting the attack, and the game is just completely lost. And yeah, and for example, you can jump over here, but then I have knight f4, and I will, I'm just cutting all the squares available for the king. And if the king tries to go away, then the rook is pinned, and I just cut it and take it and win the game. You can take on d7, but then I take on f2, you move away. then everything wins. 92, rook g1, h5, everything wins. So it's okay. So you still have to be accurate because you still gave some pieces back, but it's, it's winning. So that is why bishop g5 was played. Bishop g5 is a mistake. But let's assume you start with a move like a3. Now I would be able, or for example, bishop b3, just to keep it simple. I can take on d4, and once you take back, I can go for, again, some castles, etc., etc. But I should be able to, just put some pressure on the queen by just castling first, playing rook c8, and every time the queen jumps over here, then I'm just okay, rook b6, knight e4. There are also some tricks in which I take on e4, then queen h4 check, and I get the rook, the classical beginner trick. But okay, knight f6, bishop g5, and now I've castled, just trying to bring some other pieces into the action. Bishop b3, inaccurate. Probably he should have tried to put some more pressure on this side of the board. But here I decided to be very, very creative. I took on d4, he took back, and now I played h6, which the engine doesn't like. The engine says start with rook fc8, but I just wasn't sure what to do after queen b6. It turns out I'm a moron. I could have played h6 or knight b6, and the queen is almost trapped. For example, you go on a6, but I just didn't feel it. For example, if the queen moves back, there is rook c1, so, so that's bad. And if you take, I take back, and I'm threatening absolutely everything, and the game is just completely winning. So that is my inaccuracy. I started with h6. My idea was just to give back the piece, sacrificing the piece on d7, but it doesn't matter since I'm better. So I could have taken on d4, which was winning the game immediately because I had some checkmate threats and or winning the rook, winning the queen, etc., etc. And let's say, for example, you go queen h3, then at the very least I have queen e3, and okay, either that move or queen c1, getting the rook, and okay, you should probably play something like that to not lose the game, but it's still completely lost. I'm still having the attack. So I played queen f3, which is logical, attacking the rook, threatening to win a rook with check. How could I? And after rook e1, I calculated very accurately and I found the win. I played bishop b4 check, which is still the best move. I don't know why the engine now says it's a mistake. This move is also completely winning, and after king d1, the engine wants me to play queen d4, but this is already a tougher win because I had to accept, that I will actually sacrifice the pawn on f7, and at this point in the game, I didn't, it wasn't clear in my mind that I could sacrifice that much. So I decided to start with bishop b4. Now he has to basically go knight c3, and even though it's not the best win, it's still very, very clean. Queen e3, king d1, and now rook b d8. Now it was clear in my mind, if he takes on f7, I can take on d7. But now I realize that if I take here, there is rook f3 check, king h7. You take the rook, I go rook f1, and here I thought, okay, rook e1, and I take, you go back, I take, rook takes, and actually I realized that, oh, but I'm down a piece, so it doesn't work. I saw that already one move prior, and that is why I saw and I decided to play the only move and the best move, king h8. The idea is actually very, very, very special. The idea is just that I am getting out of any problems with this diagonal. I will show you a move. If I take, then again, the same variation, I lose over here. And that's a problem. And I don't have any good moves available. Otherwise, the king runs away. And if I take here, then rook f3 at the very least wins the game. So that is why I found the only best move, king h8. Now, if he takes here, it's not check. So I have rook f1 with some checkmates in 2-3 moves, etc., etc. I can also take the queen then. So I decided that he took on f8, I took back with the rook. Now I'm threatening some checkmates, but he played bishop f7, and now I also, of course, found the best win, which is bishop takes e3, he takes back, and now it doesn't matter where he goes, the king is getting crushed. Here he has to save the rook by king b1, otherwise I'm up material, and I played rook c8. Probably starting with rook b8, bishop b3, and rook c8 was more accurate, but I didn't like the fact that the bishop was closer to the king and behind the pawns. When the bishop is there, every time you move the pawn, the bishop will be more difficult for white to move. It will be a lot tougher. So that is why I decided to start with rook c8, even though the engine also wants some checks. The engine says I'm in time, but I didn't, I saw some variations like that in which I am just, Oh, I forgot that I could take here. Yeah, but okay, I just didn't like it. It wasn't clear in my mind, and I was pretty low on time, I think. So I decided to just go for the easy move, rook queen c8, and now I'm just, now it's just a matter of technique. Queen d7, the engine doesn't like it. My idea was just to harass the king. If this move, I thought this, and this, and I think it was okay, but I stopped probably too early after rook d1, and I thought, okay, I'm probably still better, but it's tough. It's tough. The rook is on the best side, on the best side of the on the better side of the pawn. The rook is always better behind because then it becomes a lot easier to push, and I didn't want that. So I decided to play more practical. I played queen d7, at least, harassing the king, using the fact that it's still a weak king. And now he played the best move, but it's still very inaccurate. Now after a5, I'm just building some more pressure, and I get one more attacker, into the action. So king c2, a4, bishop moves, and now I'm just, building some more attacks, attacking absolutely everything. The engine says it was inaccurate. The engine wants me to basically jump from behind and get the pawns, I guess, but it's very tough position. Queen b4, and now he blundered. I could just take on d4, and now the game is simply winning because he doesn't have the two passers together, and now it's just an easy win. King d3 was slightly inaccurate. I think he should have tried king c3 because now if I take on a2, I'm sorry, on h2, he can take on a3, and check isn't losing the rook. But I could have taken here, I think, instead of taking on the other side. So he went king there, and now I take, and now it's just completely winning. Here he misses a small tactic. If he takes, I have queen d5, and I just get the rook, and the game is completely winning. Thank you very much for this analysis. If you want to learn more on the Carokann, just subscribe to the channel, buy my book about the London system, the Sicilian defense, and the Benko Gambit. It is how my book about the Benko Gambit looks like, so I really like it. Thank you very much. See you in the future. Take care.